being transparent in business is never a bad thing. Like overly transparent is one thing, okay? But being transparent in business only has upside the way I look at it. That's how you cultivate leaders. That's how you cultivate people that understand, that can, that will fight for their team or not fight for their team.
Welcome back to the Millennial Dentist Podcast, a podcast all about working smarter, not harder. Pushing dentists to go beyond dental school dentistry and build the practice of your dreams. Here is your host, the Millennial Dentist himself, Dr. Sully Sullivan.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Millennial Dentist Podcast. Yeah, I keep saying it's good to be recording again on every episode.
But it is.
It is good to be recording
I mean, that's the beauty of it because it's, number one, you have an amazing message and energy to share with people.
Thank you, too.
And what people don't understand, or people say this, is that we get more out of it than others. And it's true because it gives us purpose.
Yeah, it's therapeutic
and motivational, and especially when people call back or reach out and say thank you for this, or hey, we're talking about it's so amazing, and it's our gift is to share.
Well, I'm excited to have you on my show.
Yeah,
because lately I've been
the
only
second
on
best
your
podcast,
but the number one best podcast studio. I would right now, at least between the two of us, I think. But you did show me the way in podcast studios.
Listen, here's what I'll say. Generally speaking, is you take my ideas and you do them bigger and better, and it makes me. But it makes me prouder and happier.
That's what is it? What is it? What is this? Whatever.
Sincerest form of flattery is copying, right?
Yeah.
So, nothing makes me happier than to see you succeed.
Well, it's fun. Well, anyways, hey, we got a fun message today though, because and this message kind of brought up by just you walking in and us talking like, hey, how's your day going? What's your week been looking like? And you're in town obviously for our mastermind doctor day. So one of the cool parts about our mastermind program is doctors come into our office and we spend a whole day basically seeing how the secret sauce is made, right? Like getting into the kitchen and seeing how we actually practice and do
but
things.
It's an unplanned day in the sense that like it's not like we stage.
we get on schedule what we get.
Yeah, no shows, whatever.
I know. I was about to the point where I was like, hey, can we like try and convince some people to come in for planning appointments on this day? Like this is the only availability this week. But no. So that's kind of fun. But anyways, so you said that your biggest challenge this year, 2023, and probably as we go into 2024, is people.
People, yeah.
Hiring, keeping, maintaining, just the people in your practice. Yeah. Talk a little about that.
Well, so I want to take that a step further even. Look, people have, like I've always said, and I've heard from other people, that people are the problem and people are the solution. Right, we just can't do what we want to do without people.
Right,
and we've kept saying, or people keep saying that we have a unique situation. I don't think it's unique anymore. I think this is the reality for some period of time moving forward.
It's now been 3 years since
3
COVID.
Years, exactly. So people don't exist.
We can't keep blaming it on that.
And we've seen the proliferation of private equity, DSOs, corporate dentistry, whatever you want to call it, double in the last 3 years. And they've put pricing pressures on human capital. They're outpaying because they can, because they run smarter businesses than individual practices do. And so the people are the challenge, okay? Hiring, maintaining all of that, driving revenue, creating happiness. The people challenge is the biggest challenge, not just for me, but for everybody listening, whether they say it or not. Yeah. There's this inkling or grumbling that I could lose anybody any point in time, any day of the week. And so what I was talking to you about is that today I did some unexpected raises for some team members at the office. And one thing that's changed about me a lot in the last 5 to 7 years, pre-COVID even, is that I try to be proactive on giving people more money because I don't want them to ask because I want it to be a surprise.
Right.
And so that's really that's what it boils down to is I want them to ask because but I also want it to be a surprise for them.
So how do you handle when people come and ask? Like if you don't like to, because I'm kind of with you. I don't like to necessarily respond only give the raises when they ask, or give them a raise every time they ask? Or how do you handle that?
Yeah. So I let's start backwards on this one. Okay. I keep a running team compensation overhead sheet.
Yeah.
Okay. Of where we're at and future people.
For your total team overhead.
That's correct. Cost. Not doctors. So all team members, hygienists, front office assistants, lab people.
And historically, that's been what? Somewhere between 25 and 30% is like what it should.
Let's call it 20 to 30%.
20 to 30%.
Okay. And so I try to keep track of that. And then that way I know where my business is running. And historically, I've given raises as we are above that number. Okay. Because there's money to give raises. Now,
meaning if your number's 24%, once you get to 22,
even at 24, I'll start giving.
Okay. Gotcha.
Okay.
Gotcha.
I'll start giving because
you're in the range of where you'd want to be.
Yeah. So I start giving. Now, recently I've had to be more proactively giving because of market pressures. So for example, in our market, hygienists are making 30% more than they were making let me back up. They're making 40% more.
I was going to say
than they were making pre-COVID. And smart people, even dumb people, they look at ads. They look at employment ads and they're like, well, this person's advertising this.
Does that bother you?
No, because I look at ads too to see what's out there.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
The reason I asked that question is because I feel like naturally most people actually, it almost offends them. Mm-hmm. Or and I've had people, even my own team members be like, well, it's going out. And I'm like, well, why are they looking anyway? And so my initial reaction's like, well, screw you or whatever, because you're looking. But I'm kind of I moved more towards your standpoint of like, well, shame on them for not looking on some level, right? I mean, you would want, your
shame on you for not looking for a better bank rate.
Yeah,
or a better
right,
this, or
exactly.
better that,
Right, absolutely.
And I think it's fundamentally, we've lost touch with some reality as well. And I say this humbly, and I say this with kind and careness, but $5,000 extra per year means nothing at this point in time. Yeah. Okay. Yep. But $5,000 a year to a team member, most team members, almost all team members.
It's like a 10-15% raise potentially.
It's life altering.
Yeah.
That's the broken car that they need to fix. That's the XYZ that they need to do. And so for me, luckily, I have someone in my ear who's constantly, negatively and positively, reminding me that I live in a different world than they do. And as much as I don't like to hear it, my ego wants to think I'm, in tune. My ego's not in tune. What really brought this on for me, a couple of things was today specifically is the other day I brought up the conversation about how I spend $50 on groceries last week. And they all looked at me like I was nuts. Like, how do you spend so little? And then they're telling me the numbers that they're spending. Like one of my team members said she spent $900 on groceries last week.
Oh my God.
And that'll be for 2 weeks. And I'm like that hurts me.
Yeah.
I make a lot of money. And so that makes me get to thinking of like, how are you, and this person I know, well, I'm like, how do you afford that? She's like, well, we have to eat. And going out to eat is expensive. And so it gives me that perspective. And this particular same person also reminds me of what the ads are out there. Hey, this is what people are offering or advertising, and there's a level of apples and oranges of what people say they'll pay and then what people actually get.
Right.
But we have to be, psychologically, we got to be competitive. We have to be.
Well, and I do think you're right. Like there's a psychological advantage of like being proactive versus once they start looking.
Oh, they want at least that much or more.
Now they're also like, I don't know, maybe a foot out the door, but like they
got a toe out the door.
Yeah. I mean, they've
thought about it.
We've now opened up that conversation. Yeah. So I see that for sure.
And so,
and do you tend to do this? Like, do you tend to do things universally or like you said, raises today, or do you tend to only like,
well,
if you upgrade, like hygiene's a good example, just because hygiene tends to be one that we're all struggling with and dealing with. And if hey, all my hygienists are paid, 10 to 15% less than market rate, do you go and move them all up, or
I will give everybody a bump.
okay?
Now, whether
maybe it's
it'll
not the
be-
same percentage bump.
That's correct, because at the end of the day, they all talk, or you see it they see it in their eyes, or suddenly they have a new car, or a different car, I should say, or suddenly they have something that they talked about. Hey, we're going on a trip, and so people know, So I think it's impossible to hide these things from other team members, and I've generally been a squeaky wheel person, and I'll put out the fire. Like recently, we've had fires in the assisting department, so I've dealt with that.
Yep.
Right. Yep. And so now, I've dealt a little bit with hygiene, but hygiene just doesn't stop. The hygiene situation isn't stopping.
Well, and hygiene is the weirdest because it's almost like a fixed rate anyways, because there's not, on paper, there's not a lot of face value difference.
Yeah.
Between a hygienist,
For the most part. Now, of course,
we
know.
obviously know that that's not the case. But whereas an assistant, the range could be significantly different based off what they do or skill set.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I get, generally speaking, not always, okay, but generally speaking, I'll departmentally do bumps. Okay, so if outside of hey, you're 90 day
Or similar
assistant,
role bumps.
Yeah, not outside of hey, you've been here 90 days, you get your little bump because you're just starting. That doesn't mean everybody gets a bump.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
when I do these, when I evaluate where we're at competitively, because I want to be competitive. Okay, I don't want to live on it's a great place to work as my competitive advantage.
And that's one that, guess what? All of us think that is our
Let me tell you, it's living trumps a great place to work.
Yes, absolutely.
And so,
And I think too that I because my dad a lot of times will want to look at the whole benefit package, right?
Yeah.
Because we do offer retirement plan, and we do those things.
Megan gave me a good dose of reality on that.
Yeah,
today
but
too.
the challenge is that doesn't mean money in 20 years means nothing when you're living paycheck to paycheck.
Megan gave me a dose of reality on that today because so it's nice. And Megan was fighting for her team today. And so I go, well, we have the best retirement plan possible because I give everybody 7.5% as part of my defined pension plan, right? They get 7.5% free.
Yeah.
She goes, great. I value that because I make enough money to have money left over. The rest of your team doesn't value that.
Yeah.
So I said, well, they prefer not to have it. She goes, yes.
Yeah, and get $2 more.
Yeah. Well, whatever, something equivalent. So I said,
they'd rather have less money but get it now.
Yeah, they'd rather. Yeah, exactly. Sure. Right. And so that's the dose of reality sometimes that I don't want to hear, but I need to hear. And
now selfishly, I want to move this along because I have some personal questions about our office that I want to ask. But okay, so you got this. Our compensation in both of the ways we view it is you've got your base level pay, your hourly rate, your salary rate, whatever that looks like. And then you've got the bonus structure.
The ability to earn more.
Now, I want to hear a little bit about the bonus structure, the ability to earn more. And then I want to transition that at some point, just to kind of let you know where I'm going. And how do you divvy up? At some point, does the team member value the first one over the bonus? And does your bonus become less to start giving out more hourly rates because of the climate that we're in? That's something we're struggling with.
I'll answer that last part because it's easy.
Okay.
They value the hourly rate more than the bonus.
Right. So
because it's individualist, right? Because with the way we do it, the bonus gets split equally.
Correct.
Okay. And so, and it's not guaranteed.
Correct.
I mean, they may not hit it every month. It's guaranteed if they hit it. I mean, but it's not like we take it away.
It has great months and it has not so great months.
Yeah. Sure. And there's rules, there's principal rules with it. So what I've seen that, again, back to reality, you and I will take less to earn more and they will take more to earn less.
Yeah. That's a really good way of putting it.
Yeah.
Because I have some that would probably say, no, I'd rather have the upside of the bonus because I know
lower. Yeah.
I know if I'm going to give you an hourly rate, it's going to be a fixed thing.
Yep.
So it won't have it's not going to have the high end potential that the bonus will.
High income earners will take the risk of the big payout. Okay. Low income earners will take the security of the guaranteed money over the payout.
Yes. Yeah. That's a good way of putting it as well.
Yeah. And so to answer that part of the question, let's put that out there. Okay.
Perfect.
So
thank you. Now I have to rework some of this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's time. I need to do this.
We have to. Well, look, we have to evolve with the times, and we have to evolve with the nature of where our business / practice is at.
And that's a great point to put an emphasis on, because if you're not growing in what you're doing or the team members you're having, it probably doesn't change or evolve that much. But when you look at like, okay, the trajectory that we've been on, or the growth that we assume that the people we work with are on, it's natural that you're going to have to modify it. Nothing's ever like this forever.
Yeah. And look, bigger growth comes at a higher expense than initial growth. Okay. Like you and Rick, you were able to grow this much at a certain overhead. And then the next two doctors don't do it at the same overhead.
Yeah, that's a lack of.
They're not as efficient.
Yeah,
they don't watch things as much as you guys. They don't do the procedures that you do. You know, it's just, it costs more. Like scale.
Yeah, I remember I was blown away. You told me that one time, and I was like, I was blown away that as we got bigger, we were going to become less efficient.
Yeah, less
profitable
on a percentage basis.
Yeah, and that was kind of eye-opening to me, because I was like, well, gosh, our overhead should go down on some level, and it may, but
there's scale, and then there's like incremental growth.
Yes.
Okay. So solo doctor practices
can have lots of incremental growth.
They can have incremental growth, and incremental growth comes at a higher margin. Okay. Group practices.
Yep.
Okay. Individual, single location, multiple doctor offices. That's scale growth, and it comes at a higher overhead, generally speaking.
That makes total sense.
So now come back to your bonus structure. There's no good bonus plan or bad bonus plan. Okay. It's like everything else. You need to be consistent, transparent, and you need to measure.
Well, and ultimately, yeah, I mean, the point of a bonus plan is to try to extract a higher percentage of effort and production out of the people
to motivate people.
Yeah,
it's like the carrot.
So the carrot sometimes changes because of that.
Yeah. So for me, I do a bonus structure that's always tied to total team revenue, total team compensation, tied to collection revenue.
Yep.
And a fixed percentage, and then they get a fixed percentage of the money above that, and we equally divvy that up. So I don't say, oh, the hygienists get more, the assistants get second most, the front office get third most, or XYZ, because that's typically the pay structure hierarchy. Everybody gets the same amount equally, you know, and obviously there's rules, you know, that you put in place individually as practices. Like for us, one of the things is you got to show up on time or you're out. You got to show up or you're out.
Well, I think it's the bonus then becomes a good way to train behavior that you want. Like
assuming you're hitting the bonus.
Assuming, yes. And that's I do want to table that because I want to get to that. But like one that we do that I think is a good one is you can only take so much time off in a month if you don't schedule it in advance. So
and
like,
even if you schedule in advance, you can't take 3 weeks off.
You can only take 1 week off in the bonus in ours. And then, but if you take more than 1 day off, that wasn't unplanned, then you're out of the bonus.
Yeah, even if you're sick. I mean, that's
right.
Just,
and so it definitely,
you know,
because what I found was if it was 3 days,
they'd take 3 days.
Take 3 days. 2 days, they take 2 days. And so that's helped us from that standpoint.
So now let's come to the real challenge in bonuses. Okay. That you got to drive revenue. You know, ultimately, yes, it's great to say, hey, I need to pay my people more. I need to have a bonus structure in place, you know, and I need to pay my people more, but if I'm not doing the revenue, that means it's coming straight out of like what I told Megan is this raise is coming straight out of my pocket.
Because it's not correlated to any growth.
Yet. Or guaranteed. Like giving people base pay does not equal more effort.
So how do you do that when you're at the top end of the number?
Well,
when you're at 30%, 32%,
you have no choice. Now let's come back to that. But you have, like in this market, I have no choice. The choice is new people. But new people cost more.
So then it's double down on the people.
Yeah.
Either for the short term in that the market,
well,
it comes back.
It's something that I preach that no one listens to. It comes back to financial flexibility. You know, I've got the financial.
Because really, it's hopefully a short term pain because then I can get the production out or the growth I need to then relevise my numbers back.
And so part of this conversation with team members, and I don't have this conversation with the team members. Like I make the decisions, but then a team member, a leader in the practice, the leader in the practice will have the conversation with the team, and they need to make it, you know, clear that look, there is no more unless we have a business growth. You know, and then we have a meeting on the books to outline the business growth model. Like what are we responsible for? What do we have to do from my perspective?
With the individual people
as a team?
Okay.
As a team. Yeah, because in our situation, our bonus structure has it exists, but there's no scoreboard anymore. So no one in my office could tell you what the number is, where they stand, like how close are we not, and
is that because you started falling away from the bonus, so or it just became expected, or you're just
no, because in our business like yours, we have boom or bust months.
Yes.
And so
and this may be another.
And so we didn't hit it all the time.
Yeah.
We hit it every so often. And then
because and what you mean by boomer bust, but expound on that, because basically what we're saying is when you would work and you would get larger cases.
Yeah, I mean at this point,
$20,000 cases.
Yeah.
That would then all of a sudden
it moves the needle.
So then is it fair or right, or maybe not fair is not the right word because fair is not a good word for this, but is it worth then modifying something to realize that like, I don't want to be because this is something I struggle with too. Like I don't want me or dad's working to be what makes or breaks the bonus.
So here's what I tell the team. I say outside of planned family vacations, I will not be the reason you don't hit bonus.
Okay, so you're giving them some level of commitment.
Look, if for example, I'm missing 2 weeks in October because we have two class weeks.
Right.
Okay, and so that means I'm there only 2 weeks out of the 4 weeks of October. So proactively, when proactively, and Megan's always done this because she's in charge of me. She came to me and said, "So, what are you going to do for me? So how are you going to make this up?" And
I love that. I freaking love that.
So I go, well, what did you have? Like, I don't answer the question. I said, what do you have in mind? She goes, well, I just need you to give me a couple of days. I said, okay, what do you have in mind? What days do you have in mind? She goes, well, do you have to be at the classes these days? And so because we have the concept of replace yourself, like I have flexibility that I don't have to be there. Like, so the days Jock's teaching the Full Arch Express, I'm going to be at the office. The day Adam's teaching next week, I'm going to be at the office. And so I give back in that sense. And same thing for Christmas. I'm gone for 2 weeks. I can't control that.
So one question I see that I'm getting a good bit is when you got as people grow, and we see this in our own doctors, when they start doing fewer well-planned visits, all of a sudden they start having a better profitability where they can work less and make the same, or even work less and make more. And so then all of a sudden they're like, well, I don't want to necessarily pour that back into making more. I want to pour that back into time with my family or being at the office or leaving early.
It's a great point.
Then that means that in most of our practices, this idea of work smarter, not harder, work less, make more is now a falsehood or a facade for our team members who are being paid hourly rates, who now all of a sudden it's like, well, what do I do? Do I bring them in and do... Well, do I let them do what's it called when they do hygiene without the doctor there? Some states allow that.
Neglect. I don't know. No. Here's the reality, okay?
I know you do this differently. So
but the reality is most people never get to that point, okay? Because driven people that do get to that point, they don't see it that way.
I think there's a transition though, where they're struggling with how to accommodate a new idea.
So we missed a point that I said earlier. Earlier I said we'll have a meeting where we'll give commitments to the practice. Okay, so I've given a commitment that I will do this much dentistry. Now whether I do that in 1 day or 10 days, I will commit.
Okay, so it is almost based on more of a production number in your case.
In my case, I'll share my numbers. Is my commitment is I will not get in the way of me doing $120,000 a month.
Okay.
Now I want to do that in 6 days, 6 to 8 days is what I want to do it at. But I'll do it in less, and then you'll leave me alone. Okay, or I'll do it in more because I didn't do it. Okay. Now the same for my associates. Okay, your commitment is X because that's what the business needs to sustain itself. Now, just because you can live on $5,000 a month, my business needs you to make $10,000 a month. I mean, or equivalent associate pay because that's what we got. Now, if that doesn't jive, then you're not the right fit for the office.
Wow.
You follow me on that? So I've made my commitment in that, and then so I've also made the commitment that when the other departments fall short, I will pick up the slack. Now, there's a couple of caveats to this. I'll pick up the slack doing shit I like to do. Like, I'm not coming in to do a quadrant of fillings.
Yeah.
Okay. Your bonus is going to suffer because I'm not that. Like, I have a level of vanity that I'm not going to do that. Now, if it's about me eating and keeping the door open, you better damn believe I'll be there to do a quadrant of fillings. Okay. But so every provider in our practice has a commitment level.
Would you call it a goal? Is it the same as a goal or different as a goal?
Well, usually their goal is higher than the commitment level.
Their goal is higher than that makes sense.
Typically.
Yeah.
Okay. But
because goal is more of your shoot for the stars a little bit.
Yeah. And we can talk about that a little bit. But I've given a commitment level that I will work. You can ask me to work as much as I need to work to hit this number.
And again, that's really not something that comes into play until we start talking about bonuses and whatnot, because now...
Well, or survival mode, it comes into play there.
Yeah.
But bonuses.
So it's just funny.
I see a light bulb that just went off.
Oh my gosh. So talk to
our group about this.
I'm like, I'm
an
asshole.
You have to, no, but I've talked to you about this. You just weren't ready to hear it. Okay.
Maybe it was the frame or
I make a commitment that I will work this much.
Yeah. And
so I will produce this much.
So my moment was in July. I was like, I knew that like for the larger long-term picture of the practice, which I was obviously okay with going through short-term pain to get there, would mean that I was basically going to check my production and not really produce outside of just trying to help coach the new associates, work on bringing in our lab in and like doing things that help the business, but don't really contribute to in the short term much
to the bonus. Yeah.
So then what happens is basically no bonus.
Yeah. So now I'll give you some pushback on that. I've told you what you should do, right?
Yeah.
But I'll give you the pushback. I'll give myself pushback on that. Is so the way we teach bonus at 3D Dentist is a 3-month rolling average. So if you bumped up the 2 months previous, then I'll say it's okay for you to have a down month on the third month because your previous 2 months.
Yes.
Okay. Now, but then you can't have a down month the following month because then that's going to screw somebody up down the road. Okay?
And that's probably where is yes. There should have been a little more ramp up going into
or communication.
Yeah.
Like not even the ramp up because then they get used to that.
Right.
Okay. So like for example, I did 180 grand last month. But I told them,
not a norm.
I said, I'm not going to work that hard.
Yeah,
I don't need to or want to. Okay.
And again, one of the big words we use when we talk about bonuses is transparency. And you see why it is because actually when I give them this information, they really start to understand the bonus more of how that kind of stuff impacts. Because some of them probably never went over their heads. Why didn't we get a good bonus this month?
Look, back to reality, man. Most people in our practices have a bachelor at most level of education.
Sure.
Zero business training or business knowledge whatsoever. And so, dude, they're just trying to survive, man. They got a job. This is what I make per hour. This is what I got to do to pay the bills. So our job is to cultivate potential in people when we recognize that potential.
Well, I'm going to have to make some changes and some tweaks.
It's
been inevitable.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, you're running 2 practices.
Right.
You're running a surgical practice and a general practice. And we've talked about that you're going to have to split the 2 out. Maybe not from a legal perspective, but from a financial perspective. I think your general practice, the business as a whole should get some credit for what you do in the surgical practice.
Sure.
But the surgical practice should get way more portion of the credit and therefore the bonus than the general practice.
Yeah.
Because, and frankly speaking, is there's more risk inherent in the surgical practice. And so your team members should share in that risk, on the downside and on the upside. And so again, back to being transparent in business is never a bad thing. Like overly transparent is one thing, okay? But being transparent in business only has upside the way I look at it. That's how you cultivate leaders. That's how you cultivate people that understand, that can, that will fight for their team or not fight for their team, all of that stuff.
Most dentists, I think, are way away from the overly transparent range.
Yeah.
Because we're so used to being
guarded and secret.
Yeah, we don't talk a lot. I mean, most of us don't have. We are. I mean, you and I are unbelievably not the norm as far as level of just honesty and openness about things because that's what we're used to. Right.
Well, that's why we're more, generally speaking, more successful than most. And look, I want to share this with you. I don't necessarily want to read it out loud, but this is a message I got from one of the team members that that got notice of her bump in pay. So Sully's reading this.
So basically, a very appreciative message.
But not even just that. I mean, it's look. There's a picture of her.
There's
crying.
tears.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You know, because I know. Look, it's life changing.
Yeah.
And it's that level of, there's an appreciation when you actually say yes to what they ask for. There's a different level of appreciation and political capital that I bought by being proactive there.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of practices that are in good positions to do this, and are that it would go a long way, especially if you're going into a position where you want to grow more, or you're wanting to change things, or you're wanting to like make life harder.
Yeah. And to me, it's a way to,
we wouldn't have gotten where we're at without that, without sharing in the growth and the profits of the business at all. I'm a firm believer in that.
And look, I'll be very transparent about this. My team hits their bonus less than most of the people I coach. One, I'm not there as much. Okay. But I still make plenty of money.
Yeah.
You know, I've made more along the way, by being generous to them. And so, look, philosophically, I don't believe you should depend on people making bonus to motivate them. I don't want to be surrounded by people that are solely driven by that. That doesn't fit. That doesn't fill my heart or what I believe in. Now, I also want people that are motivated. So it's this delicate balance for me that fits for me. I know some of my dentist friends that they want low base pay, high motivation, and they surround themselves with people like that. And good for them. This just doesn't work for me.
Those sound like unicorns.
Yeah, but it doesn't work for me, you know. And
I'm with you on that.
And so I believe in building a purpose-driven practice, and that purpose is for the name on the door, which happens to be mine in my office, and yours and your dad's in your office, and your purpose matters the most. Okay, and that doesn't mean that other people's purposes don't matter, because you can't be that egotistical or that dictator on things. We have to adjust to what the market is. And so, yeah. But now, last thing I want to talk about on this before we have to go is none of this matters if we don't drive revenue.
Yeah.
We got to drive revenue to pay for it, okay, to justify it, and to have that carrot to dangle for them. And so, kind of like I talked about with you is I will have a business plan. Not fancy Harvard business plan. It's a basic business plan. Sully, I need you to do this. Okay? To make this all work, you've got to do this. You've got to do this. You've got to do this. Here's where I think you can get this from. Here's where I think you can get this from. I'm here to support you. Okay? And then we kind of go from there. And what I've learned, maybe the hard way or the stupid way, is the majority of it's going to fall on the doctors. It's going to be very difficult to get meaningful increases in hygiene, especially if you're a PPO-driven practice, which I am, which you are. So a lot of it has to fall on the dentist. And so for me, kind of to wrap into our whole message, where I look to that is I look to the team members, my assistant team, and I say, this is where I need you to be infrastructurally better for me. Okay. These are the clinical skills I need to develop, and I need you to help hold me accountable. So I kind of project out, this is what I'm trying to do over the next 6 months. Okay. And this is the technology part of it that we need to implement. And I'm going to lean on, I'll learn how to do it certainly, but I need you to be right behind me and beside me in learning how to do that. And so that's how you drive the revenue.
And I'll say that this is probably the last 2 years is really the first time we've ever done like business planning or looking at it more at not reactive. Like a lot of people will be like, yeah, my overhead's this. And that's because their overhead is this based off just the state of the retrospective looked, right? Versus saying, okay, here's where I want my overhead to be here. Here's what I project we can do and project where we go. And then now I know where that revenue is coming from, to your point. And I think it is helpful because let's say it's a 2-doctor practice and you have 3 hygienists and you start saying, okay, well, if we're trying to get to X a month, well, I'm going to get so much of it from hygiene, but then hygiene needs to know, like, they're only getting so much more. Like, they're better figuring out that, hey, if I invest my time, energy in getting
restorative care
or
ortho care
or whatever that is, that's going to funnel to the doctor revenue pots, which is the pots we're short on.
Yeah. Let me give some more value to your listeners. is I think, look, I think one of the most important part of our KPI tracker that we use with our mastermind people is what I call the clinical diversity, because it gives me insight into what's going on. Like, I look at all of our people and they're hardly doing any endo. I'm like, dude, you gotta get back into doing endo because it drives revenue, especially if you're a CAD/CAM office. It's a endo build-up crown, right? And so we got to look at that stuff. We've got to drive revenue. And let me last analogy here, okay? Because I always like to do the analogies here. Like, dentists we're such an odd breed. We'll think of building a bigger store before we try to maximize our store. Like, so for example, a grocery store, they sign a 20-year lease or a 10-year lease, whatever it is, and our store is this big. We have this many shelves. Okay, sounds like kind of like a dental practice. We have this much time.
Yep.
Okay, and so if the dentist ran the grocery store, they would be like, we're selling more bread at 5 cents margin. I need
more room for more bread.
I need to take all the stuff that makes more money off the shelf so I can put more bread on the shelf, right? And so part of that we really try to emphasize in our practice and who we coach with is part of this revenue growth has got to be, where is your revenue coming from? Which things make you money? Which things don't make you money? Which things do you have more opportunity in? And where do you got to get rid of some stuff where do you got to get rid of pennies to put dollars in?
Yeah, because once your grocery store is at capacity, then it's a matter of when am I going to swap out? And
most dentists that listen to podcasts fall into one of two categories. They're startups that want to get there. Yep. Or in 80%, that's probably 20% of them. And 80% of them are chaotic offices that are just too busy, right? And so they're the ones the most that need to be take inventory, what we call inventory of the dentistry that they're doing and what procedures, what they fill their shelves with. And they just, it's unbelievably, to me, it's frustratingly hard for most people to see that.
It is frustrating. Well, this was good. I thought this was informative.
Okay.
So thank you for helping.
Are you trying to tell me I'm done talking?
Yeah, we're going to wrap this one up. I'm trying to be shorter, and of course we went 37 minutes, but that's okay. Hey, if you enjoy this stuff, come hang out with us. Look, y'all know what we're doing over at 3D Dentists, and we want to find ways to be a part and hang out and help out. Mastermind 2024 January is sold out, so if that's something that you're interested in, you got to jump on it because
summer 2024.
It's summer 2024,
and that's almost sold out. So it'll be January 2025.
Yeah. So make that a priority.
It'll change your practice. I promise you. And if it doesn't, I'll give you your money back.
Money back guarantee. I love it. Everybody works smarter, not harder. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to The Millennial Dentist. Visit us online at millennialdentist.com.